the whip. Well, everybody, welcome to this very special Thursday night for Tony, Friday morning live stream. Tony was the one that brought this this topic up for debate, up for therapy, as we're calling it now. And I said, that's a great idea. As I started to noodle on it as my personal experience, I was like, yeah, the whole Star Wars Episode 1 toy thing, there's a lot of memories from in other words, it was an active thing that we've all just kind of put in the closet. It's kind of like, that's never. And then when I started to really think about it, I was like, there's a lot we could discuss about that personally, not just from the nuts and bolts perspective. Now, before we get started, I have one Star Wars related thing, thank God, coincidentally, that I need to share with everybody. I did my unboxing video a few days ago, and unfortunately, one box, it's a small little cube. It got tucked under the chair, and I forgot. So, if I wanted to start it with this, if Carlos, if you are watching this right now, I am opening your box, your parcel that you sent. And inside, Carlos has sent me a small head Han Solo, a vintage, original small head Han Solo. And
very nice.
I believe
that's one of the figures that I picked up at Joe Fair. I don't know if it was this year or the year before, but yeah, that's one I needed. So I've only recently added that to my collection.
And here's where the joke comes in. All right, you ready? Hello, Michael. I am sending you and I want everybody to know this was sent on August the 30th. You guys need to keep that in mind, okay? He says, I am sending you a small head Han Solo to send to Tony at Analog Toys. If you didn't already, send your care package to him. All the best is yet to come, Carlos. Now, Carlos, I want to let you know that the care package had already gone out to Tony with all of his stuff by August 30th, but I will not lose this for Tony, and I will make sure it gets to him in the next parcel. So,
thank you very much, and thank you, Carlos. Yes.
So it actually is fortuitous that parcel got kicked under the chair because you were going to be here for it. See, every now and then the universe works out. However, in the summer of 1999, I don't know if the universe worked out or not. So. All right, here we go. Tony, kick us off with your thoughts on not the movie, because we're not talking about the movie tonight. The movie's been talked to death. You and I talked about that, saying, hope everybody understands. We're going to be looking at the total other side of this experience, the side that didn't involve film cameras. What was it that made you think we need to talk about this?
I've been thinking about the topic a lot lately. I think it probably started because I was listening to the amazing commentaries that you were doing on Chronically Online about the original, about the prequel movies. And it was making me think about it. Now, the Phantom Menace hit me at a very unusual period in my life. So I had served 4 years in the Australian Army from 94 to 84. When I got out of the Army, and which I was based over on the East Coast, when I returned to the West Coast, I was in my early 20s, and I actually moved back in with my parents for maybe 6 months. And it was that period there where I was very reluctantly living back with my parents.
Right.
That's when the Phantom Menace hit and the toys hit. And I'd already started collecting Kenner's Power of the Force 2. And when the Phantom Menace hit, nobody could avoid it, whether you were into Star Wars or not. It was like every store you would go into grocery stores, or sorry, supermarkets. You would go into supermarkets and there would be, Darth Maul's face would be on all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
it was absolutely everywhere. And I got sucked into the hype train like a lot of other people did. And I started buying toys for a movie that I had never seen.
Yep.
I don't know how many different versions of Darth Maul I purchased. There's a couple that I kind of want to talk about.
Yep.
Now, after seeing the film, and I didn't hate the film when I first saw it. I went back to the cinema. I think I went to the first time I saw it in the cinema, I went with my parents.
Right.
And then I went back another 3 times. I think I saw it in the cinema 4 times. And I was going back for repeat viewings for 2 reasons. One, the lightsaber, the final kind of part of the lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, particularly just after Qui-Gon is killed.
Yep.
That few seconds of, fencing was some of the best lightsaber choreography I'd ever seen.
Yep.
But the other thing I was going back and rewatching it for was because I was trying to understand what the hell I had watched, and I was trying to figure it out. But to bring it back to the toys, as I said, I had collected so many of them, and even after watching the film, it didn't stop me buying more toys. There was a few things that came along after I'd seen the film, like one of the battle droid tanks. I remember seeing that and I was like, that. Whatever I feel about the film, that's a really cool vehicle, and the toy looks pretty cool. I bought that. But as I look back at it now, because we are, it'll be the 25th anniversary next year. So we're more than 2 decades removed from this. And I look back now and think there's a lot I've actually got to thank the Phantom Menace toys for today from a collecting perspective, because it taught me a lot of lessons. And that's something I really think would be good for us to explore today.
Sure.
I don't. It's certainly from a toy perspective, it's the wave of toys that stopped me from ever again getting swept up into a toy hype train. Backing HasLabs and things.
It's always only been, and not every Star Wars movie, but it's always been a Star Wars movie that made me make that mistake. Because when we talked about on Last Hurrah, when we talked about the 2008 Indiana Jones line, the advantage I had there was I'd already been through the Phantom Menace thing. And so the only figures I picked up from that line were the Raiders figures at first, and waited for the other. I wasn't interested in the Crystal Skull stuff, even after, and especially after I saw the movie. I was like, no, what? No.
Come on, Michael. You wanted an Arena Spalco action figure.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But see, Phantom Menace taught me that lesson, like you're pointing out. Oddly enough, I did get so hopeful for Gareth Edwards' Rogue One because of the trailers, and knowing that by that time we had distribution problems going on with Hasbro. It was more like, if you see it now, you better get it kind of thing, that I ended up buying ahead on a lot of that. And I didn't regret those purchases as like I did with Phantom Menace, because I thought Rogue One was far better than the Phantom Menace as a movie. But I still, in hindsight, was like, well, I ended up selling those off again. So how important was that movie to me, really? I hear what you're saying. The Phantom Menace, it taught us how to, if we were paying attention. You know what it did? It separated the fanboys from the educated enthusiasts. You know, we all jumped in at the same time. I was waiting for my sophomore year of college to end at Syracuse University. The Midnight Madness at all the retailers for Phantom Menace toys was sometime in April or something, late April, something like that, early May. And I drove out there. I got a friend to drive me out there because I didn't have a car at Syracuse. We drove to the local Toys R Us, and I bought figures. And I mean, I was on a college budget. I had my summer job lined up when I got back to Atlanta, but I was still on a kind of a fixed income, as they said on Seinfeld. And but I ended up with a number of figures up front: Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon Jinn, Anakin, and I want to say I got, was it Naboo Padme or something like that from the final battle. But yeah, like these are here. So everybody, just so you know, everyone, a lot of the photos that I'm going to show tonight are actually, I had to go back into, how we've all had multiple PCs or desktop computers as we've gone along. Some of you are laptop people. And I've saved the contents of every hard drive as I upgrade my computer.
Yeah.
Well, even though I've sold off all those episode 1 toys, and I sold them off years before I ever started RetroBlasting, I still had the photos somewhere. So I went and I found all the original photos of those toys. So, for example, these are the action figures that I ended up having loose, that I ended up selling. I had more carded, and I have pictures of those as well. But these were the ones that I had loose. Now, KBA in the chat just said that he doesn't remember much about the episode 1 line, but I have some helpful learning aids tonight. So let me pull one of these up real quick so that we can all enjoy, I say that very sarcastically, this look back. Here we go.
Listen, the explosive words and sounds of the Star Wars Comtech system. Imagine yourself in the movie.
I sense a disturbance in the Force. May the Force be with you. Use your instincts. You will be a Jedi, I promise. You have been well trained.
You haven't experienced Star Wars until you've experienced Comtech. Figures come with chips, readers sold separately, batteries not included. It's your universe.
The YouTube channel that has kindly been archiving these commercials. So I didn't want to cut his or her logo out because they're doing God's work.
I've been looking for some of those commercials and I haven't come across that channel before. So thank you for informing me of that.
So here we go. So let me go back to this photo I pulled up. So every single one of those on the left is standing on their Comtech chips. All the ones on the right were later figures when I learned, yeah, these Comtech chips don't mean jack. There's no reason to take them off the card. So you'll notice they're still on the card packs. So,
yes, yeah.
But I can't remember who it was. Somebody in our community did a video recently within the last year about the Comtech reader and how bad it was. Who was that?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's hilarious because the Comtech speaker is so poor. And so like when you wave a chip over it or whatever, it's just like you can't understand anything anybody's saying. And I don't think they even had the license for everybody's voices. So some of the voices were like impersonated poorly, just to give off these generic lines.
Laserpants is asking if it was Sal, and although I haven't seen it, when you mentioned that, I was like, it seems like the kind of thing that you would see on 2 Cents Toys.
Yeah, it might have been Sal. It might have been Sal if I recall. But either way, like, it was a great video, and I remember watching it at that time, just going like, see, because I never bought that Comtech reader. I was a kid of the 80s. Like I just wanted the action figures.
Yeah.
Then I saw the movie and I started, my resolve started to crumble, but the figures were all I needed. So yeah. Now, Tony, tell me about your toy buying experience. Were you there for the midnight thing, or did you catch it later? Like, a few days, after it, was already in stores.
Well, I'm not sure if they did a midnight thing here in Australia. I think it was very much like everything will go on sale on this date. Right. But Australian stores, I remember when I came to visit with you and Melinda earlier this year. We arrived on a Friday and we went out for dinner. And while we were at dinner, Melinda said, I really want to go to Walmart. And I was like, I've never been before. Like, take me to Walmart. I was like, what time does it open tomorrow? And Melinda looked at me and she's like, it's open 24 hours. So we don't have stores like that in Australia.
Right.
But yeah, I remember going into, I don't remember what store it was, Kmart, Target, Toys R Us. But I remember going in, on the first day, looking around, and I distinctly remember the first toy I ever bought was the Darth Maul with the speeder bike in the small box.
Yes.
Which you had in that photo. It was on the right-hand side of that photo.
I will grab a nicer photo of that for you. So stand by. Let me grab it. Keep talking. I'll find it and grab it. There we go. And are you going to give me the thing? Yes, you are. I have this. I didn't know where our conversation was going to go tonight, and there are so many. There are so many toys from this line that it would have been folly to try and grab everything. So I thought I would have a great little system so that whatever we needed, I could just grab it. So there's your speeder. That
was a cool little toy. Yep. I really like that.
Yeah, it was. It was one of the better offerings because it had the soft goods cloak, it had his lightsaber, and it had an accurate speeder to the movie. Yeah, because they did the carded Darth Maul. He had those. They used to do those horrible PVC capes, which had been going on since the Power of the Force started. Right. And so that's the final. That's the Jedi duel. Okay, and the other one that you wanted would have been this one right here, which is the second version Darth Maul. So this was the first one that came out because they were hyping that end duel, and then later, like a few months in, they brought out this one.
Yeah, that's with that horrendous PVC cape, which hindered all of his articulation, pretty much useless.
Yep.
Yeah, I bought them all. I bought the 12-inch doll, and then they had. Yeah, well, I think because of my connection with Action Man, I was buying a few of the 12-inch Hasbro because they were doing it in the Power of the Force 2 line before Phantom Menace, I think. You used to get these massive box sets with like a 12-inch Han Solo on a Tauntaun and things like that.
Yep.
I wasn't like buying all of it, but I was buying a few of those figures, and there was like a 12-inch, like a dueling Darth Maul. I think he spoke, and you press this button, and he would spin around his lightsaber.
Like you said, they did a 12-inch Darth Maul on his speeder, no less. So I wouldn't be surprised to hear what you're describing now. I mean.
Yeah, they did. I think they did a Qui-Gon. They definitely did Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, 12-inch. They came on like a base plate,
right?
And I think you pressed a button and they spoke. And as you press the button, it would make them like parry their lightsabers, and you could clip the bases together and actually have them fight a little bit like a 12-inch version of Rock'em Sock'em Robots kind of thing,
right? Sal is here. He says, episode 1 toys were my okay moment as a kid. It was the moment I realized that the toys don't marry up to the movie entirely. Because of Qui-Gon, there was a set with him and the Gooberfish, and he has a spear, which definitely didn't happen. Dude, Sal brings up a great point, and thank you so much for the very generous super chat. But yeah, you're right. There were these, it's almost like this was the last movie where they were, well, that's not true. Force Awakens got so far ahead of the final shooting script because J.J. Abrams is an idiot that Hasbro couldn't even sell the toys they made. But this was one of the final ones where the movie was decent enough toy-wise that they kind of got ahead of the final edit, and they were making things that, how do you define those?
Well, now I'm pondering the fact that if Qui-Gon had have killed the Gooberfish with a spear, would it have made a better movie?
Oh, and I'm not gonna. I would say yes. That would definitely have made a better film.
And thanks for that, Sal. I'm gonna lay in bed tonight. I'm gonna lay awake trying to get to sleep, thinking about Qui-Gon spearing a Gooberfish.
He's
That's
like
the kind of thing that keeps me up at night.
Like Captain Ahab. He's just going at it. Not even better. Matthew McConaughey from Reign of Fire. Where that would have been a great ending. Now, you were collecting the Darth Mauls at the time. I was collecting the Darth Mauls as they incorporated into the smaller action figure line. But as far as the 12-inch goes, I had for quite a while in college. I bought them in college and I kept them for several years. I had these guys. So I had the Jedi 12-inch. And what sucked about these was that the Obi-Wan was actually really decent, but he came out second. The Qui-Gon came out first, and they forgot that, hey, these Jedi doing all these fancy tricks in the movie, they're going to need some elbow joints because you got to be able to hold that lightsaber with both hands. So Qui-Gon didn't get elbow joints because he was first. And so then when Obi-Wan came out, Obi-Wan was like the Deluxo first class edition Hasbro doll. So he was able to pose better than Qui-Gon was. I'd always toyed with the idea of like getting another Obi-Wan and like swapping heads, and then I was like, I'm poor, I'm in college, I don't have that kind of money. So
that is an amazing hairdo.
Oh yeah,
that is glorious.
I mean, and that's the other thing too, that Qui-Gon is all rooted hair, like unlike Obi-Wan where only his braid is rooted. But with Qui-Gon, even though they could have gotten away with just doing the mullet wings on the back, they decided, no, we're going to root all the hair, which I got to say, that's impressive. I mean, and just look at the amount of soft goods you've got on there. Like, a lot of robage. That's all I'm saying.
Robage.
Robage. Now, another one that I wanted to talk about when Sal brought up the spear, because I'm so glad he said that, is if you look at these are my carded. Where'd they go? Oh Lord, really? I think StreamYard did that thing to me again, where it didn't bring in all of the photos I needed. But I refuse to submit to this insanity. So I'm going to put that photo on here right now. I've got it on I had a contingency plan. I have a hard drive right here that has them all. So just in case this happened. Because
I hope it's not the original hard drive from 1999.
No. This is that would be hilarious, though. Okay, so let me grab it, and here we go. Blah blah blah. Oh, of course not. Of course, it's going to be on my other computer. All right, I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to get my other computer up. But we'll keep the conversation going while I go on this little quest. Everybody, it's a RetroBlasting live stream. I end up having to go on these quests all the time. Thanks a lot, StreamYard.
While you do it in preparation for this stream over the last couple of days, I've been, every now and again taking a break from content creation on my channel, and I would sit down and I was watching like a lot of the media coverage surrounding the Phantom Menace in preparation for this stream, and there was a lot of different news articles about the Midnight Madness and all of the fanboys queuing up outside of Toys R Us and this, that, and the other, and rushing in and spending their paychecks on action figures. And it's amazing how many people who interviewed for some of these different little media segments, where the people are talking about, you got to get the toys and keep them in the package because you never know what they're going to be worth one day. And there were a lot of people who were buying into this under the misguided belief that it was going to be Kenner Star Wars all over again in 20 years, and these things would be worth thousands and thousands of dollars. And as we realized, those people probably shouldn't have blown their whole paychecks.
No, it was
you can't give Phantom Menace toys away today.
No, you can't. It's like a, how would I put it? It's a serious miscalculation, I guess is what I would call it. Like, I can't believe that some people were, I guess, roped into it again, because we already went through it with Power of the Force 2. And that was starting. I know that we were still in the middle of that at the time. I get that. But it was really starting to shape up like, this wasn't gonna pay off.
What really didn't help with Power of the Force 2 is that there were these like really esoteric variations, like a Boba Fett with a full circle on his glove or half a circle.
Right.
Luke's with, with an extra bit of length to his dong, his lightsaber.
Saber, yeah.
And people were buying into that at the time and going, oh, I get an extra 1/4 inch of lightsaber with this figure. That makes it super rare. And he's now worth $50 or $80 or whatever the hell it was. And fortunately for me, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think you would have been in kind of the same mindset as me back in 1999. Being this passionate toy collector that I was, and, you know, I had a father figure who was a toy collector as well. I never approached any of this, whether it was Power of the Force 2 or Phantom Menace toys. I never approached any of it from the perspective of, oh, these will be worth money someday. It's like, if I'm buying these, it's because I want to keep them in my collection. And the nature of being a collector is that I want to hang on to them. Now, I didn't. Right. I don't remember where they went. You know, I may have traded them over the years or something like that. But I never went into it like that because I've never had that kind of mindset. I'm someone who acquires toys and keeps them in my collection. I don't flip toys to try and make money. The only time I have ever seen a toy line in a store and my gut instinct said to me, you should really buy this wave of toys because they will be worth something one day. The only time that's ever really struck me, and I didn't follow through, but that was with the Small Soldiers line.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I look back now and go, you know what? And I would have been right because they are worth a fortune now.
Right. You know, I wish I had done that with a few lines that I otherwise wasn't interested in, like Warriors of Virtue. Like, I didn't care about anthropomorphized kangaroos from space, but you know what? It's now worth money.
Yeah.
But again, that gets back to that whole speculation thing. And for us, we were collecting because we were passionate about the franchise or the story or the series or, you know, whatever it was. So they can really get you with, and that gets back to what you were saying a second ago about legacy franchises and what it taught us. You know, episode 1 didn't just teach us that you shouldn't buy way ahead in merchandise of a film you haven't seen. It also taught us that just because a film has a logo on it from a franchise you like doesn't mean it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. You know, Phantom Menace was really the cinematic, what's the word I'm looking for? Cinematic trial by fire. Like it was that moment where it was like, you're not a boy anymore. You're a man now. And the world is hard out there. And, you know, Phantom Menace is what is going to teach you, you know, you can't go home again kind of thing. Preston Ridiculous, thank you so much for the kind super chat. He says, I have all the single packed 4-inch episode 1, 2, and 3 figures in the packages in my attic. I was young. I have no idea what to do with them. Well, that's really, first of all, it's great that you have them because they are the original items for those movies. So nothing can take. It doesn't matter how many vintage collection Whatsits we collect, you know, that are re-released and retooled later on. Those lines are the Kenner vintage lines for those 3 movies. The impressive part here is that, and I know we're focused on Phantom Menace tonight, but I just want to mention the impressive part here for you, Preston, is that when you say I have the episode 2 figures, that's kind of harder to do because they didn't even get their own dedicated card backs. They were just on these generic Star Wars card backs mixed in.
Yeah, the blue, the light blue card back. Yeah.
And then let's see, I have another super chat here from Venkman. Thank you, sir. He says, remember, take a drink every time Michael gets up. Technically, I haven't gotten up yet, so it might be a sober night. And then
take a drink every time Michael spins in the chair to the other computer.
Don't do that. Philip Story, thank you so much for the kind super chat. He says, hey guys, great to see you together again. The only episode 1 item I have is the 1/6 Darth Vader, Darth Maul death scene figures, and that was a gift from my wife. Okay. All right, now
death scene figures. So his Darth Maul splits in half.
That would be great. I'm not familiar, but wow. I mean, they did more edgy stuff back then. They also did really pointless stuff too. As a matter of fact, I think I think their willingness to do the edgy stuff also explains their willingness to do all the super boring stuff. Like my cousins were huge into this line. They thought that, they loved the prequels. And I asked them one time, this was back like 2000, 2001, something like that. And I said, what's the hardest episode 1 figure to find? Because they were still flooding, like they were starting to clearance tag some of them, but they were still in stores. Like you could still find a lot of them. And these guys that my cousins had just gone through all of them. I said, which one is the hardest one to find? And they said, C.O. Bibble by far. And I'm like, who? And they're like, the advisor guy to Queen Amidala at the very beginning of the movie. And I'm like, the old guy that looks like a sort of like a minister of the interior. And he's just sitting there in the chair with his, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like they made a figure of that guy. Like,
is that the guy that is after Amidala and everyone, after they kind of flee Naboo, he's the guy who has to walk around with like Newt Gunray and that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Was he he was not hard to get here in Australia.
Well, see, the distribution weirdness had already started then, because here he was impossible. He was impossible to find here. And not that I would have ever wanted him, but my cousins were like, it took us forever and we've only got one between us. And, we've kept him carded and stuff. And I'm like, wow, C.O. Bibble, really? Like that, that is that one is Peg Warmer City, you would think. But, okay, so here's the photograph, and it ties into Sal's comment about the weird things that didn't happen in the movie, but made it into the toy line. These are my figures that were carded that I sold off. So you'll notice on the left-hand side in the middle is an R2-D2. That R2-D2 was very hard to find. It was the only R2, I believe, that was sold in the episode 1 line. He came out later. You can see that little yellow sticker on the bubble that says new. And he has rocket jets that pop out of his chest on either side. And it has to do with a deleted scene where Anakin and Qui-Gon
out of his chest.
Yeah, instead of popping out of his arms, they pop out of those long panels on the front. They like, and we were always like, this is a very weird, like the spear. We thought this is a weird action feature. They probably just added it in, whatever. And we found out later that on the landing platform on Coruscant, when Qui-Gon walks back up to Anakin before they leave to go back to Naboo, and he's like, Qui-Gon, sir, I don't want to be a problem. Like, you'll notice that as Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan walk up, Anakin is like fiddling with R2. Like R2 and him have just, and if you read about the deleted scene, you can almost kind of piece together right where they cut it, because before they walk up, R2 ends up falling off the platform. Like, and they're like, oh no. And then R2 pops these jets out and comes flying back up. And they deleted the scene, but then the action figure was made before they got to deleting the scene. So,
right.
Yeah. So whatever.
But then they doubled down and followed through with it in Attack of the Clones and just made the rockets come out of the legs instead.
Right, which makes me wonder if like George Lucas was like, I'm rethinking the rockets on R2-D2, so maybe we should cut that until I get it all sorted out. Like, I can see him doing that. Like, I can see him, in his own mind thinking about the internal architecture of R2-D2. And I've got a picture of it that I can pull up here. Just give me a second. It's
and then all the people around George Lucas are just going, yes, George. Yes. Great idea, George. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Do that, George.
Of course. This was
George.
at the height of Lucasfilm sycophancy, if that's even a word. All right, here we go. All right. So this is the R2-D2 from that line. And he's got booster rockets that come out of those recessed panels on his front. You can see them kind of plug in.
You see that there?
Yep. So that was the episode 1 R2.
I'm assuming I never picked that up at the time because I probably had just a Power of the Force 2 version. So I didn't. I was not earning a lot of money back in those days.
Right.
I wasn't on minimum wage, but I wasn't much above it. So
Sure.
I had to be very, very selective with what I was picking up at the time.
Right.
Lots of Darth Maul stuff, which, you know, the way they treated Darth Maul, I mean, he's on the image behind you because that's what was in every toy aisle, in every department store in Australia, England, US. It's very much the same way that Hasbro treats Snake Eyes today. There's, you know, we get 60 Snake Eyes for every, you know, one Lady J or something like that.
Laser Pants, thank you for the super chat. He says, it just dawned on me that Tony and C.O. Bibble have the exact same voice. I would disagree.
Okay.
Yeah, the R2D2C, I also was very income challenged back then. Hell, I'm income challenged now, but I was income challenged then. You know, I might actually be poorer now than I was then. That's really sad when you think about it. Anyway, but thank God back then action figures were only like $4. So there was this drive that I had to get all the main characters from the film. I was willing to sacrifice because I was already cutting out figures because they started to aim the fire hose at us after that first wave. It was like, so I was cutting out figures that were really like peripheral and pointless. Like I even started saying, nah, I don't need the Nemoidian, you know, guys who run the Trade Federation. I don't need them. I don't need a lot of the Jedi who are on the council. I don't care about them. I don't need, you know, different like subtle variations on battle droids. I was not getting many of the vehicles at all. But R2D2, I was like, I've got the C3PO because he was like in the first wave, and it was like, so R2D2's finally come out. I got to find him, and he was a hard. See, here's the other thing. He wasn't easy to find. Like he was one of those short packed figures for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And, him and I'm sure he's easy to find now, but back then it was difficult. Him and the first Amidala that came out, who was not basic Natalie Portman, but actually in the face paint as the Queen. That first 3 3/4 inch figure from Coruscant, she was really hard to find too. But yeah, so
I do remember a couple of the figures that were very, very challenging to find here in Australia. Was the droidicars. That's what Newt Gunray called them anyway. I remember those being, and I don't think it's because they were short packed or anything like that. Everything beyond that first wave, you know, they oversaturated the market with that first wave, and I think production numbers on everything that followed were significantly reduced. But with those destroyer droids, they were just a really cool figure. You know, they had to have an extra large bubble on the front because the figures were so big. So I think they were very popular. I did eventually track down 2 of them. But there was also a Royal Guard that looked kind of very similar to the Emperor's Royal Guards from Return of the Jedi, but they were in blue with an open part of the... I remember those being very, very challenging to find, but they came out after the movie in like, you know, wave 3 or 4, that kind of thing. And that was a cool looking figure, which is probably didn't help the ease of which you would find that figure, because you know, where people would skip over like a C.O. Bibble figure or another Padme, they're going to get one of the, you know, the cool Star Wars looking figures like a Royal Guard. So
well, you can see how quickly I kind of bailed out, because if you look here at this grouping of figures and then you look at this grouping of figures, you'll notice that like Captain Tanaka is not in there. Like because by the time I found Captain Tarples, who's 4th from the bottom, and I found R2D2, and that in the very middle, you'll see that Queen Amidala I was talking about. By the time I found those, they were accelerating the rate at which these figures were coming out. And that was around the time they came out with the Tatooine Darth Maul with only one side of his lightsaber lit up, and he was in that huge rubber hooded robe.
Yeah.
And they came out with an Anakin that was it was a second Anakin that he was in the I believe he was in the Naboo fighter gear, like he was, you know, in the helmet and everything from the end. And I was like, yeah, oh no, that's not what it was. I'm sorry. He was the Jedi Anakin from the very end. He was when he was on the steps standing.
Yeah, with the
that one. And I was like, wow, like I got to call time on this because I don't have enough cash. You know, I can't. And the movie wasn't really doing it for me anyway. I was lukewarm on the film, as it were. But Midnight Madness, I'd gone to that at Toys R Us, and I got caught up in it. And I don't want to undersell. I wasn't like that guy who was like, you know, oh, I was out of it in 6 weeks. No, like Tony and I are discussing, this whole summer, you kind of got caught up in it. Even as you were struggling with the film in your mind, you were caught up with the merchandise. So over here in the United States, Pepsi did this massive campaign where every single can of every single beverage they made in aluminum cans had a different character's face on it.
Yeah, and there was a commercial with Yoda, I think, and
yeah, you had to try and track them all down, and it was like, you know, and I went after those, and as an example of some of the other stuff before we get back to the toys, I was not above trying to get all of the magazine covers that had that was the ones I sold on eBay. If you guys see me doing this, I'm not having a seizure. There is literally like a fruit fly flying around, and I'm trying to.
I know that feeling. It's that season here in Australia with the fruit flies and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, you gnat. And also, as an example, like you couldn't go into a bookstore and not trip over 200 copies of this book. So I ended up with one of those. And even though there were the electronic lightsabers that had come out, you know, those telescoping ones from Hasbro, the better ones were the cheaper ones from Ruby's, because the Ruby's lightsaber hilts were correct to size. And even though the blades were a little too short, that they fully telescoped into the handle, and then you twisted it and it kept the handle, kept the blade from falling back out. And so I had two of those. I had Qui-Gon's, which even though it only had a light in it, didn't have any sounds. It was really a nice looking hilt. And I had the Obi-Wan one, which looked really good. Like it was a really good looking toy. It looked a lot better than the big chunky electronic ones from Hasbro. I also, like I said, I got caught up in a lot of this. Like Tony and I've been saying, this was a life lesson for so many of us. I spent too many hours of my life that I'll never get back playing this game. But I did beat the movie level on the most difficult setting. Not that is an empty accomplishment, but I did it. So, now let me just check the chat here real quick. We have a nice super chat. Thank you, Shockwave75. He says, people still haven't learned the Phantom Menace Beanie Babies lesson. At least twice a week, I see some noob buying new figures, keeping the mint and sealed box and thinking he's going to be a millionaire in 10 years. Yeah.
They haven't, because, you know, they went out and they bought Funko Pops.
They did, yes. Impossible Pie, I saw your question asking, are there any of these figures that I even wanted to keep? I sold all of them. Tony, I'm assuming did you sell yours as well?
I don't remember what I did with them. I imagine I probably traded them at that time. I was doing a lot of toy trading at that time. There was a couple of like vintage toy places nearby. I imagine I probably would have gone into one of these vintage toy places with a couple of totes full of episode 1 toys.
Yep.
And maybe traded it for like 2 vintage figures or something like that. So he's got all this stock to put on the shelves, and yeah.
Well, I sold all mine right before well, actually that's not true. I sold a lot of my Power of the Force 2 stuff in 2004, right before Revenge of the Sith came out. And then for whatever reason, I kept the episode 1 stuff, probably because even back then I knew that was Genesis for episode 1. Those were the original toys. But then in 2008, I guess it was 2008-9, I sold those off. But I do have one carded episode 1 figure in my possession that came back into my possession thanks to Art Percy. I was supposed to do this. I had this skit in mind that I was going to do for a Cobra Convergence thing. It was actually going to be part of the what do you call it? Yeah, it was going to be part of Cobra Convergence, where I was doing the skit I did where you've got you can actually see the skit on the RetroBlasting channel. It's the one where Cobra Commander ends the thing by I think he kills, I don't remember if he kills Dr. Mindbender or Crystal Ball or somebody, and all the bats have gone wonky and stuff. That was supposed to end when the bats went zzz, zzz, zzz. I wanted that to end with suddenly it just cuts and Jar Jar's there, and he's like, "They said not working," and then he shoots Jar Jar, right? So my buddy Art, he said, "I can find you an episode 1 figure of Jar Jar, no problem." Well, when he tracked it down and sent it to me, he didn't do anything wrong, by the way. I'm sure he got it for pennies, but it was mint on a mint card. And I was like, not that this figure's worth anything, but when I looked at it on that card, I thought exactly what Tony said at the beginning of this live stream, which is this. I know it's going to sound lofty. It's going to sound dumb. It's going to sound not romantic, but just overly intellectual masturbation. But I looked at it and I was like, you know what? This is the kind of thing everybody needs in a collection to keep them humble and keep their common sense up. Because this was a symbol of everything that had not only gone wrong for us as fanboys, we had, the FOMO just took us over. But also I thought this is also a reminder that even great franchises can go sideways. So I decided to rewrite the ending of that sketch to give that line to somebody else and make it a reference. I've kept that carded Jar Jar. He's in the storage room. I don't have him on display. I should. But he's my reminder to stay humble. He's my reminder as a content creator to stay humble. Anyway. But to answer your question, Impossible Pie, yeah, I have one figure. It's a carded Jar Jar Binks. Yep. So now we have a super chat here from our friend Scuba Pete. He says 3 3/4 inch Desert Rat exchange to Jar Jar. Misa, no like you. Oh man.
Yeah. Poor Ahmed Best.
I know. He's actually a really cool guy. It's a shame that all went down for him that way. Tony, what's your next thought? I can see the wheels turning. So,
well, when you showed the Nintendo game for the pod races, it made me think about that, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I bought any of the vehicles for this line,
right?
But there were some pretty cool. You had the Naboo Starfighter,
right?
You obviously had. They did the 2 pods. They did Sebulba's pod and then Anakin's pod.
Yep.
But then there was the Naboo Royal Starship.
Yes.
I've never seen. When I say never seen one of them in person, as in like picked up and held the toy. I saw the box in stores, and I've seen the box at toy shows in the past. But I kind of want to check that toy out and see what it's all about.
I saw it at Toys R Us several times, and that was something that really tempted me just because of its ambition. I was like, you know, this would be worth it. And then I was young, I was poor, I didn't get it, and here it is. Here is the Royal Naboo Starship. And it's huge. Like, it was a huge Millennium Falcon sized ship. Now I'm still wondering, because it looks like they made it so that the figures can actually stand up in it when the roof tile is put on there. But I'm not sure. It's hard to remember exactly just how big that thing was.
From my memory, it was it's at 3 feet long.
Yeah,
Starship is 3 feet. Yeah, that's big. I mean, it'd be cool if they do stand up when you put the panels on. At least it's better than the Super 7 Cobra mothership.
Yeah, the salad bowl with a lid. Yeah, that ship, that flying wing in the intro of that show was really, really cool. That $500 toy does not capture it at all. Like that. No. Cody Martin, thank you for the super chat. He says the only thing we have left from the prequels is the Queen Amidala 12-inch portrait edition in black travel gown that my wife bought that release night. I do remember that. There was that whole doll line. I was not immune to it. I ended up getting one of the dolls back in the day. Never took it out of the box, but this is the doll I got, which I felt was the quintessential Queen Amidala image because,
Yeah,
that
was the one from the trailers and everything. Yeah.
Yep. And then, speaking of vehicles, talking about this Naboo starship here, I did end up with, not including Darth Maul's speeder, I did end up with 2 vehicles from the line that I sold off. So here was my Naboo fighter with Rick Oley as the pilot. That actually wasn't a bad toy. Very accurate to the movie. Really great electronics and sounds in it. It was tough to get Rick Oley in that fighter because of all those PVC rubbery pieces on him. And of course, you still wonder. I know they've done diagrams where they show like R2 goes up through the bottom and then his head telescopes like an antenna to come up into that top bit, which is like really like. But at least there was a fixed R2D2 there. So in that way,
did that toy have a landing gear?
I don't think so. I think because they just floated. Remember, they just hovered in the bay. So no.
Oh, yeah.
Which
So that's something that if you wanted to display it today as a toy collector, you would need some kind of a display. I'm sure someone out there makes an acrylic stand that you can buy on eBay for $30 to have that thing hover on a shelf.
Right.
The chat saying no landing gear. And of course it wouldn't. That hadn't occurred. I just saw it's kind of sitting there thinking, how would you display that? But an acrylic stand.
The other one here is the that I had. I don't know why I had this, but I had it. I had the Anakin Pod Racer. And the interesting thing about this one was that it was actually quite well made, which I can't say about most Hasbro products today. Those cables that run out and attach to the engines, those are actually rigid metal.
Yeah.
And they plug into that thing. And so when you hold it between the engines, and then the pod actually rests on your forearm. And then you can operate the sort of steering vanes and everything from there. Not a badly engineered toy, just kind of from a very long, protracted, pointless scene in the film. And from what I understand, they also ended up making Sebulba's pod as part of the product.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. When you watch the toy commercials, it shows you exactly how you're saying. They kind of hold it between, so the engine goes either side of your hand, and then the cockpit sort of rests on your forearm. And I thought, if you had 2 of those, you'd be a little bit like Shiri in Black Panther with
King Eric, thank you for the super chat. He says, Michael Tony, have you heard of the episode 1 board game called The Queen's Gambit? It's rare and fun. I haven't heard of that. Have you?
No, never heard of that.
I'd like to send some vintage Star Wars 77 posters. I mean, that's a very generous thing to offer, Eric. Send me a message. Send me a DM. We'll chat. So those vehicles, those were the only 2 boxed vehicles that I had, not including the Darth Maul, which is more of a deluxe figure with a speeder. But that is a vehicle. It's just more of a, I don't know, like these were the ones that, it was like.
It was smaller than a Kenner speeder bike,
Right, exactly.
So it's to me, it's like, that's an accessory for the figure. It's a deluxe figure.
Right.
But they also made the trade federations, their which were like these pilotless flying, pointless, absolutely pointless toys. Where they, when they were in dock, they would walk around on their wings. It was this whole concept of a droid army. So
they were
which makes me wonder why, if those didn't have pilots in space, Why did the tanks need battle droids to drive them on ground?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were some logic problems there. Also, how can you contain massive EMP charges in blue beach balls? How do you do that? How does that work? Here is the Trade Federation droid fighter that you're referring to. It actually came with 3 droid fighters, so you got an instant army build, which I think is amazing, given that until they came out with that massive tank from the in battle, they never even had like multi-packs. I don't think that's not true. They had a number of multi-figure packs, so I don't know if they ever did multiple battle droids in a pack or not, but they had a lot of those different multi-packs. Like they had one that was Qui-Gon and Darth Maul fighting in the desert with Anakin, right before they get to the ship.
But they weren't troop builders like this though. Whenever they did those packs, it was like 3 different figures.
Right.
Yeah, they had the Naboo duel scene, I think it is.
Right.
Jedi duel Darth Maul. I'm struggling with the word duel today.
Yeah, it's let's see, is it called the droid carrier? It was something crazy. It's the MTT droid carrier. This thing was huge. I don't know. Did you ever see this thing in stores? The droid carrier?
I don't think so. I remember I got the tank. I purchased. That was probably the last thing I ever bought for Phantom Menace. But not the droid carrier. I don't remember seeing that.
Okay, well, let me show you.
And bear in mind, like in the late 90s in Australia, we still had a lot of Toys R Us stores everywhere. Distribution was not as bad as it is today.
This is why you didn't see it. Okay, because I forgot when they brought it out. Okay, so it just made a huge impression on me at the time, but now I know why, even though it was much later. This toy, even though it's Phantom Menace, actually came out in 2012.
Wow.
But check this out. After you see it, it's like the Naboo starship, the Naboo Royal Starship. You're kind of like, It came with 20 battle droids.
Holy crap.
And they all deploy out of the tank. Now, they're not like... in fact, I think they actually are... Oh, no, they're not. They're not folded up. Then that was the weird part, is all those action figures of those droids could fold up the way they did in the movie. But for this particular toy, they didn't bother to work that into the design. But still, really impressive that you can just instantly deploy 20 battle droids that come with the tank. I mean, see, Hasbro needs to really up their game like this. They don't do this kind of stuff anymore, and it's sad.
Today that would be a $600 HasLab.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
we've still never gotten a Rebel Blockade Runner.
Which, hey, now we got half a hallway. It's gotta be worth something.
I have a confession to make, Michael.
What's that?
I purchased that half a hallway.
Well, but you do all this fancy lighting and dioramas on your videos, so
it is a prop for video production. And I picked it up because I found it on eBay for $20 Australian, which is like, probably 50 cents in America. Right. No, it's about $13-14 US. So
now Laser Pants is saying that the droids that came with that tank aren't articulated.
The battle droids from the original Phantom Menace line were. You could fold from memory.
He's saying these aren't.
Yeah. Which is
that's too bad.
Yeah, it's a silly decision when you've already got. I suppose lots of different parts. Takes longer to assemble on a production line.
Right. Yeah, so they weren't cool enough to give us the already designed and pre-made battle droid figures. Just give us 20 of those. No, they gotta.
Yeah. It probably would have increased the production costs by 3 cents per item. So
Jake has asked politely a question. He says, "Was the hype for indie toys in 2008 as big as the hype for episode 1?" No, the indie toys. They had a bigger presence than they did this time around. This time around, they were like a fart in the wind, as I predicted, by the way. But no, episode one dwarfs every single product release. In fact, I think the only one that came close in the modern era to even getting close to that was Revenge of the Sith. I feel like Revenge of the Sith, the hype for that movie got the whole thing back on track a little bit for Hasbro, but no, I still don't think it was as big as episode 1. So
no, I think the only thing for me that really compares with episode 1 was 10 years prior, when it was the summer of Batman 89.
Right.
Right. And just the presence of I mean, there was more product available for the Phantom Menace than there was for Batman 89, but just the whole brand saturation being everywhere. It's probably the only two that I feel like I've really experienced in my life to that level of global saturation would be Batman 89 and the Phantom Menace.
I agree. Batman. Oh yeah, that's a great point. I was thinking Star Wars. Yeah, Batman 89 may have gotten one up on episode 1 as far as market saturation. It may very well have. But episode 1 and Batman 89, you're right, Tony. They're neck and neck when it comes to impact that summer. The only difference is that everybody liked Batman 89. So the movie being good, but isn't that interesting? The movie being really good helped out the merchandising goodwill for Batman 89. But as far as a toy presence with Toy Biz that summer, they didn't produce that much product in a widely varied range. There wasn't a lot from the Batman movie that they could really make that they identified and then put out in stores. It was more the logo on, T-shirts and hats and anything like that.
Yeah, well, the 89 Batman wave only had 3 action figures. Batman, Joker, and Bob the Goon.
Yep.
That was it.
Which is crazy because you had other figures you could have made, and it's like, well, no. Now, as the toy discussion continues on, I told Tony about this right before we started. So there was one other development that summer of 99. For now, I'm thinking summer of 89. 99. My birthday is in July, so every summer, my birthday comes up, and my friends from high school, since I was back in Atlanta for the summer, one of my good friends showed up one day, and he handed me this big garbage bag, and he said, "Happy birthday," and I was like, "What?" And I could tell there was something inside, and this was that summer. And somehow he had gotten his hands on it. He assured me he did not steal them. So, and I believe him because they were in immaculate condition. But he presented me with the actual aisle banners for the toy aisle for Phantom Menace. So I had these massive toy aisle banners in heavy cardstock for the Phantom Menace toy aisle. And
are they double-sided?
Yeah, they're double-sided. So this one right here has, I believe, this on the back, and this, god dang fly, and then this one right here flips over, and this is on the back. I think that's right. No, wait, no, that's not. Well, that actually, yeah, I'm wrong about that. This one has this, this one has this on the back, and this one has this on the back. So either way, so I ended up with the literal toy aisle as well as the figures themselves. All right, now, were you roped into anything outside the toys that summer? Or how did you feel if you weren't to all the other stuff that was being sold?
It was pretty much just the toys for me. I definitely, I had a Darth Maul t-shirt that I used to wear around. But it certainly, this stopped me from getting into. I didn't buy any toys from episode 2 or episode 3, even though I did want that troop dropship from Attack of the Clones. I thought that I don't know what it's called, but the Republic troop dropship thing. It looked like the G.I. Joe Tomahawk from the Star Wars universe. Yep. I did really want that, but this stopped me buying any modern Star Wars for a long time. I don't think I got back into modern Star Wars until I started to dip my toe into Black Series, and I got into Black Series really late as well.
Right,
I did that for the 40th anniversary of Empire, so 2020 is when I got into Black Series. As a matter of fact, I would say that the Phantom Menace put me off modern toys for close to 2 decades, and I just went back to my vintage corner, where I'm happy, back in a day when people actually knew how to make good toys, and even the ones that weren't cool, they had a quirky charm to them. And I'm not saying that the Phantom Menace toys were bad. That comm chip reader was terrible. It was designed to look like the communications device that Qui-Gon uses when he's on Tatooine.
Right.
This little handheld thing, but they produced it and it was like, 5 times bigger. Like, what powered that? Was it like a couple of D-sized batteries or something?
Right. Right.
But the figures weren't bad. The 12-inch stuff was hot garbage. Hasbro just could not get away. Hasbro designed a 12-inch body when they brought G.I. Joe back into 12-inch with the Hall of Fame in, I want to say, like 91, 92.
Right.
It was this horrendous, overly buff sculpt with terrible articulation. You had these huge bowling ball sized hands and the elbow articulation, I think it was like vinyl over a bendy wire joint that had like a click, but literally it would move from there to there, and that would be all the articulation. Going back to the image you were showing of Qui-Gon, he couldn't hold his lightsaber two-handed.
Yeah,
they kept using that body type from 91, because when Hasbro brought Action Man back in the UK in the early 90s, they kept using that body type all the way through. They used it for all of those Star Wars 12-inch, and they were terrible. I know a lot of collectors who were buying the 12-inch Star Wars stuff just for the costumes, and then putting the costumes onto vintage Action Man figures, because the Action Man figures had much better articulation, and they would swap the heads over and things like that.
I'm so glad you brought up the communicator for the Jedi, because I almost forgot I wanted to ask you about this as well. I didn't even know this figure existed. And when I ran across it, I thought, am I looking at a weird, like, just packaging variant or something? So this is the original Qui-Gon Jinn figure from Phantom Menace. This was first wave, Jedi Duel Qui-Gon Jinn. The next one that came out was where he had the robe, the outer robe on, and you could plug the lightsaber to his belt as well. He had he came with a pluggable belt hilt, and then he came with the thing. But this was one I didn't know about. And at first I thought I was looking at this figure again. Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn with lightsaber and Comtech. Yeah. And at first, see, I didn't remember what the articulation of the arms kind of was, because I remember that they kind of did this. So I wondered if this was just packaged funky. And then when I looked at it closer, I was like, oh, wait, he's got a soft goods kind of skirt thing going on under his belt. He's got that little, communicator women's razor thing. And I was like, I just feel like this is too subtle to even be worth it. Like I don't know. It was just, and I know that they were Hasbro had already been dipping their toe into these kinds of variations right before Phantom Menace came out with the Star Wars line. They were starting to do the thing where it's like, it's Luke Skywalker, but he's got like the little model of the T-16 in his hand, or maybe it was the one where he had the blast shield helmet on or something. They were starting to revisit, but at the time it didn't feel like a revisit, because we all said, well, they're trying to get away from the buff sculpts. So they're starting to make them less buff. But with this, I'm starting to go, no, they were just starting to milk this thing. Like they were, let's find every subtle variation.
I mean, all fans want a Qui-Gon Jinn with a shrunken head. Like, how small is the head on that figure?
Well, let's look at it again. Yeah, that's not good.
That's worse than Luke in Stormtrooper disguise from the Kenner line. That's bad.
Yeah. Sorry about that, everybody. I was trying to kill that fly. Probably missed.
That's right. Yeah, it's when they started doing all those variations, it was like, yeah, the fans want Luke from the deleted scenes where he's got his fishing hat, you know?
Right. Which I ended up with that one. Somebody gave that one to me. He actually wasn't that bad a figure if you didn't have the hat and stuff on, because he actually had elbows, which was nice. Ravenwitch66, thank you for the super chat. He says, late to the party, just wanted to say hello and thanks for all the awesome content. Well, thank you for being here. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think of some of the crazy. So I think it was somebody up here. I can't remember if it was Ryan or Scuba. They mentioned the infamous Jar Jar Binks tongue lollipop. Did you have those where you were at the time?
Yes, I remember that.
Approved. I cannot believe that got approved.
Well, I mean, back in the day, you've surely seen the C-3PO sticky tape dispenser.
Yes.
This was the next generation's version of this. It was
I just it's not so much that I, as much as there's an innuendo thing there that we all joke about, it's more about how much did Lucas truly not care about the reputation of his brand just from a marketing perspective? Like, because when episode 2 came out, they really dialed it back in a little bit in a lot of ways. And the merchandising thing was no different. They were a little more picky choosy. It was still, episode 2 was still all over the place, but it wasn't like it was with episode 1.
Picky in the sense that, all right, for every Obi-Wan product, we've got to go and make 20 Jango Fett products. Jango Fett was he was obviously the Darth Maul of the second movie, and it was great that they made him a Maori with a Kiwi accent, and
and
then all of a sudden he just became every stormtrooper in history, and
that's what kind of throws me off about a lot of this. I want to ask the chat, because I know a lot of you in the chat are a little younger, and I've seen you guys chatting it up tonight about this line and your memories of it as being not in your 20s like Tony and I were. This is not sarcasm. There was a lot of stuff in that episode 1 line that had to do with the Gungans and the pod race aliens and all that kind of stuff. Was that stuff appealing to you as toys? Like, did you really want to go out and get Jar Jar on one of those things with a stick with a ball on it? Like, was that something that appealed to you guys? Like, I am curious, because you guys have seen my Star Wars Follies where I talk about Return of the Jedi and the sticks and how annoying that got as a child. Like, that was my thought as a child. So as children of the Phantom Menace, did those toys fall flat for you? The Gungan stuff, obviously not the Jedi and the Darth Maul and even the Naboo soldiers, and I get all that. The other stuff, did it fall flat for you? I'd really love to know. Dark Star Huxley, thank you so much for the kind super chat. Can we talk about the Phantom Menace accessory packs, or did you guys already do that? We haven't. I can bring those up. Stand by, and I will.
So I don't remember if I bought the accessory packs or not, but I definitely remember them, and the reason I remember them, it was very much so in the original Kenner run, there was the survival pack with Empire Strikes Back, where you could get a few backpacks and an oxygen mask, and and then the belt with the grappling hook for Luke. But that was the only one they did from what I can remember. So I remember seeing these accessory packs. It was like, I loved that kind of stuff as a kid.
Yep.
Being able to give my figures extra accessories, do a little bit of customizing, change up the look, rather than having to buy. I would much prefer to have one Luke Skywalker that had a fishing hat accessory and the binoculars from Tatooine and a lightsaber and a stormtrooper blaster. One figure with all the different accessories, so I could play with him in whatever scenario possible, rather than what Hasbro did then and continue to do now, which is, no, we're not going to give you the accessory pack to customize that one figure. We're going to give you 10 different versions of this figure, each with unique accessories.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tony. The whole idea behind the accessory packs, I'm trying to outfit my figures. So, for example, when it comes to the Naboo soldiers, they're the ones that have the grapple guns. I'm never going to want grapple guns for anybody but them. So, you know, like, and that was the one thing that I did appreciate about the Phantom Menace accessory sets, is that at least they were themed, like in the sense that they kind of told you where they were supposed to go in the mythology. So like, here is the Naboo accessory set. It comes with the grapple gun. It also comes with a robe for some reason, which again, not really sure what that's all about. I guess you could give one of your other Jedis, your Jedi Obi, stupid fly, I'm gonna kill you. You could give one of them maybe a robe or something, since you know they didn't come with them, which that might have been cool, but I don't know how they looked on them or not. But yeah, it comes with a lightsaber too. So I guess Captain Tanaka could have a lightsaber if he wanted.
Yeah. Or you could just lay the robe on the floor and it could be dead Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, good point. See, now when I see that when I see the robe in that set, I'm kind of like, ooh, maybe I need to go get some of those for my other Star Wars displays. That might be kind of a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
But you know, there's also a Tatooine one that I remember most, and it came with here it is. This is the one that came with Qui-Gon's poncho, which I thought was kind of funny. I was like, why would I ever want Qui-Gon's poncho? Because I'm pretty sure they made a figure that came with his poncho. So I guess this is for people that didn't want to double down on the figures, which is kind of nice. But this is the Tatooine accessory set.
Yeah. These were cool. These appealed to me when, you know, that's made to expand the play possibilities for a child. It wasn't just collector focused product, which is like all they do today. Yeah. Aim for the collector. Certainly when it comes to Star Wars, anyway. I know there are still toy lines out there that are targeted at children,
right?
But yeah, a lot of the Star Wars and the Marvel product around today, it's all targeted at the adult, no matter what they try and tell you.
100%. Somebody was saying here. Somebody was saying, I hate the way this thing jumps. StreamYard, fix your chat scrolling for God's sakes.
Yeah, what you have to do is have someone like Laser Pants, who just, as he sees them, he stars them and then just comes back to them later by doing that, flicking over to the starred tab. But Ryan's better at doing that than I am anyway. So
Willem Toy and Hobby, thank you for the super chat. He says, hi, Michael and Tony. Awesome chat. I worked at KB during this event. We opened a kiosk devoted to Star Wars merch. The clip-on Jedi braid was the worst. Oh yeah, I remember that. I don't remember that. I remember I remember seeing them just loaded up on pegs. Like, they were everywhere, but I don't think anybody was buying them. They were like the Jar Jar tongue lollipops, which, by the way, one of those just sold loose. Jar Jar tongue lollipop just sold loose on eBay for $57. I'm just the messenger.
Do you think George Lucas, was saying, to his inner circle, the people at Lucasfilm, before the movie came out, he was like, you watch the summer of 1999. Every kid in America is going to grow a little braid out of the back of their hair, and nobody did. No one did.
No, it's like it's kind of like when we talk about his intention for the Ewoks. He wanted to take over the teddy bear market in 1983. Well, yeah. I found commercials. I didn't pull them in, but I found commercials that were very much targeted at little girls with the Padme Queen Amidala doll line, because there were a lot of different dolls. And you see the little girls, she's so beautiful. Like in the commercials that are like these kids, and they're like, look at her pretty dresses and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, Lucas didn't succeed at cornering the market on teddy bears in 83, but by God, he was going to try with Barbie in 99. And it didn't quite work out then either. But he was kind of,
but then wasn't it around the time of The Force Awakens or one of those, and they started doing like Leia and Rey dolls again? I'm sure you featured them on the channel before.
Yeah, the Forces of Destiny or something like that. They were more like posable plastic dolls with rooted hair, but they had some soft goods, and they were something.
They didn't learn, did they?
No, they really didn't learn. I'm gonna kill that fly. This is Just Jeff, thank you for the super chat. He says, get some Slurpees and or Tim Tams. Either way, cheers to you both. Also, that Naboo ship from this line was awesome. I'm kind of trying to now keep that Naboo starship out of my mind, because I don't know where I would keep a 3-foot long modern starship. I am morbidly curious to see it in person, though. I only saw it in person in the box, if that tells you anything. Cody Martin, thank you for the super chat. He says, the Lego Pod Racer set was cool. Now, some people, Tony, have been asking us to talk about the Lego sets, which I don't know that much about. I did have the Naboo Fighter Lego set, but I kept it in the box and then eventually sold it. And then people are asking us to talk about the Micro Machines. I never really... I had a few of the Micro Machines Action Fleet from the mid-90s of the classic stuff, but once episode 1 happened, I didn't really go in for any of that. Did you?
No, I've never been one for Micro Machines, and as much as I played with Lego in childhood, I've never been a person who really. When I buy Lego sets now, it's because I've watched a Toy Polloi video and he shows how he uses a piece of Lego to repair another toy. So I buy bits of Lego to chop up with plastic nippers and repair other toys. So I'm not a Lego guy, and I'm definitely not a Micro Machines type of person.
I never understood okay, so as a visual aid here, okay, and I'm not trying to throw shade at people who like Micro Machines. All right, I'm just saying you've seen that. Okay, I'm going to show you this again, everybody. Naboo Starfighter, 3 feet long, can fit all these action figures, probably does all this cool stuff. It's got battle damage and sounds and everything. Infrared remote. Oh my God, it's got a remote. And then there's people out there that see this and go, ooh, ooh, ooh. And I'm like, that don't do nothing for me. I'm just not into little figurines that are out of scale with tiny fingernail sized vehicles. I mean,
is it a generational thing? If it's
well, there were Micro Machines
people
in the 80s
who were kids in the 90s.
When
did Micro Machines start?
They started in the mid to late 80s.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought it was like a 90s thing. Yeah,
I think it finally took off there. It took off in the late 80s and crossed over into the 90s. But it was like a certain type of kid. They loved when things got real small. I'm like, oh, all right, well, it's great for you, I guess. Let's see. KBA says, thank you for the super chat. He says, Jar Jar tongue pop mimics an actual tongue.
I see what you did there. Wow.
Yeah. So when things started transitioning back I guess around mid 2000, they started saying, well, we're going to move on. We're going to move into the next phase of Star Wars toy branding. The red tag started to happen. And I just remember thinking, this stuff's going to hang around for a long time. And some of the stuff that I saw hanging around the longest, the 12-inch scale Anakin Skywalker for that 12-inch range. He was like a box. It was like this. He hung around in droves. A lot of Jar Jars. A lot of the ancillary characters, like some of those no-name Jedi, stuff like that, you know, even though they came with a lightsaber, they were just people you only saw in the movie for a biscuit minute. And then some of the other stuff that I recall vaguely that held no interest for me. That Jabba the Hutt that came with a can of slime, and he was supposed to be.
I don't remember that.
And he came on this big ugly bubble card. Those hung around for a while. I know you saw this one everywhere.
Yes. And you know, these hung around in toy stores in Australia for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to say in like 2002, 2003, you would walk into stores and they would just be thrown in the basket at the end of the aisle, you know, while the aisle was full of all other stuff. But then going to toy shows, people would have this stuff at toy shows on their table like 10 years later. And it's like, dude, you've been bringing it to, you do the same show 4 times a year. You bring the same stuff. You never move any Phantom Menace product.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Weirdly, I think, given this conversation now and the fact that I've got this idea in my head for a video, if I went to a toy show tomorrow and someone had a bunch of Phantom Menace stuff and it was cheap, I'd probably buy it all just for the video. I'm actually on eBay now looking at the Naboo Royal Starship.
Oh yeah, Wesley
it's not
Hendricks. No, it's not. That's probably one of the nicest toys in the whole line. Wesley Hendricks says there were some of the Episode 1 Queen Amidala's at a local bargain store last year. And Tucker Time says there are Rick Ollie's at the closeout store to this day. So Rick Ollie is still hanging around.
Well, look, Michael, if I come and visit you and Melinda again in the year 2045, and we go to Walmart again, there's probably still going to be some Indiana Jones Adventure Series Marion Ravenwoods on the shelf for $7.
Yeah. Well, assuming we know which Targets they ended up in.
Yeah.
Because like as much as people are finding these shelf loads on clearance, they're not showing up at my Targets. I haven't seen any of those, and they barely stocked that line to begin with. I'm telling you,
that whole line was a Target exclusive, wasn't it?
Yeah, except they had planned for an adventure series. Some of them were GameStop, but they were like Professor Indy and Donovan. And then the 2-pack with Belloc and Marcus, that was supposed to be a Walmart thing, but I don't know where that ended up. I mean, remember, I bought that.
I've never seen that even show up. I want to say, I don't even think I've seen like reviews of that 2-pack on YouTube or anything.
Yeah, me neither. You know, there was the only thing I've seen in stores outside of that first range of Raiders assortment is, of all things, I saw one Helena Shaw. And then this doesn't count because it's another Raiders thing. When I was at Target the other day, they had like 8 of the newly released Map Room Indie from the Adventure series, but that was all they had. It was just 8 of those. But as far as retro's gone, those Kitty Adventure Hero guys are gone. It's embarrassing. Like it's rough.
Yeah. And speaking of indie, I've been immersed for several days now.
Mm-hmm.
More than several days. I'm fully immersed in Indiana Jones at the moment.
I wouldn't know what
I've been furiously writing a script for several days for a big video I'm working on. It's everything is Indiana Jones for me right now. And I mentioned it in a Patreon message yesterday, and some of my patrons are worried that I'm going to go down this Indiana Jones rabbit hole and I might not find my way out. And I know you can't relate, but do you know anyone who might be able to give me some advice on this? Or
oh well, I heard about this guy who spent 3 months making a 4-hour video that was nothing but the Indiana Jones franchise, and I can tell you that it'll spin you up, it'll work you up, because guys like you and I, we get spun up by things that have to do with that franchise, and then we go for it. But that last mile will test your resolve. Like because you'll think I'm passionate about this project, I'm going. And then you get to that last mile and you're like, well, I'm going to finish it out, but I didn't expect to feel like I was crashing after it was over, like energy wise.
Yeah.
Not emotionally, just energy, where it's like, God, I'm really tired. And then suddenly you're out for like 3 days. It feels like after you get done with a big Indiana Jones video, no matter what it is, you feel like that last shot of him in Temple of Doom, where you just see his hand grab the bridge and he the thing, and he's just like, oh my God, I can't believe I survived. Like that's how you feel. Yeah.
It's not the years, honey. It's the mileage.
It's the mileage. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I'm doing here is staying well clear of Dial of Destiny on this video script. So and pretty much Crystal Skull as well. So at least I'm going back to the 3 movies that were actually good.
Yeah, right. Well, and those would be the ones that are most relevant and toyetic as far as, giving your topic this. In other words, what you're talking about is what Palatoy would have done gangbusters on with that genre. Yeah. Like, and once you get to Crystal Skull, Palatoy, you don't really need to have that conversation because hell,
no, you've taken it out of that, late 30s World War II setting.
Well, you've also taken it out of Palatoy and Kenner's existence by that point.
Yes.
Like,
yes, exactly.
See, the way I look at it, even if we go by actual history of what transpired in our lives, and we know that Palatoy had gone by 89 and Kenner wasn't long for this world by 89, any kid who had the advantage of the Palatoy subject you're proposing, who already had those toys, they would have already been set up for Last Crusade. They would have already had everything they needed right at home. So it would have been amazing. I can't wait to see your video. I can't wait. I just warn you, you're going to be tired for the next 2 days after you get it done.
Most likely. Yeah. I'm taking my time on this one. I'm taking my time on it.
Yeah. But I'm while we're talking toys, if we're just talking toys at this hour, is there anything else before I jump into this lament? Is there anything else that we haven't said about the episode 1 toys that you'd like to throw in?
Well, so I read that Hasbro, I think they must have had to renegotiate their contract with Lucasfilm regarding the Master Toy license. And I read that they paid $500 million to get the Master Toy license to Star Wars prior to the Phantom Menace.
Right.
And with all of that product that ended up in clearance bins, people are like, oh, they must have taken a bath. And it's like, no, the retailers were the ones who took the bath. Hasbro probably did just fine. But how much do you think that affected their approach to episode 2 and beyond? Because there was still a lot of episode 2 stuff around, but it was nothing like that, spring. Actually, it wasn't summer, was it? It was the spring of 89. Bloody Batman again. The spring of 1999. They never really repeated that kind of that level of marketing merchandise saturation with the subsequent films. So that's what I surmise from that, is that the retailers who took the bath on all of this Phantom Menace product that they just couldn't shift for the next 2 years.
Right.
When episode 2 comes around, they're like, whoa. I just want 1 case of action figures this time. Like, I don't need all that stuff again.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just going. Don't give us action figures of little kids, princesses, Gungans.
Mm-hmm.
We just want Jedis and bounty hunters, Mandalorians. That's it.
I would say that it was happening at every level. I bet you Hasbro was well, I can't say that because Hasbro did regain their confidence with the buyers there for the next few years. Like they backed off with Attack of the Clones and they did like a lot of action feature-y stuff. But then by the time they got to Revenge of the Sith and then beyond, they were going back in and making every single character that had ever been on screen and every side character and revisiting stuff. So I can't say that. But I would say that immediately after Phantom Menace, if you look at the 2002 Attack of the Clones push, it was a lot more kid gloves. It was a lot more reserved, calculated. And I bet you that happened at every level. I bet you there was more oversight at Lucasfilm. I bet you there was definitely more oversight at Hasbro. And I bet you the retailers were what caused them. If I was a betting person, I would say that the retailer response caused them to rethink the way they rolled that out until they could really establish what is it that sells, what is it that people want, how can we avoid stacks and stacks and stacks of garbage, you know. I would think it would have had an effect because a lot of that episode 1 ephemera and memorabilia did go unsold. Not necessarily some of the Hasbro stuff, but more the other stuff, the every company that was just handed a license to do whatever.
The kids' birthday party sets, you know, with the paper plates and the cups and the Darth Maul hats and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Impossible Pie says, Michael, would you ever make a video about your experience watching The Phantom Menace multiple times in a theater and trying to figure out what was wrong with it, like you did for Dial of Destiny? I actually did a commentary for all 3 prequel films on Chronically Online's channel. We did commentaries for all 3 prequels, and you can get a lot of my thoughts on my multiple 14 times journey to the fandom. I'm going to kill that fly to the Phantom Menace. There, you can watch that there. As far as actually ever doing a video about that, I feel like my comments on Chronically Online's commentary kind of say it all, but also Phantom Menace has been talked to death. I mean, it's really been talked to death. I would almost be more, I'm not saying I'm going to do it. I'm just saying that it would appeal to me more to talk about my experience with The Force Awakens than it would be to talk about my experience with Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
I actually think that I don't hate the Phantom Menace. I dislike it very much. I don't hate it though. I absolutely loathe everything about The Force Awakens. Every single thing. Philosophically, execution, story-wise, fundamentally, from a business perspective, from everything, I absolutely loathe that movie. And I did the day I was in the theater and I watched it. I knew what was coming down the pipeline after that. When everybody else was like, oh my God, it was better than the Phantom Menace. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You just wait.
I just wrote that phrase into my indie script yesterday, but talking about Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny, where I said, I don't hate Crystal Skull, I dislike it, whereas I loathe Dial of Destiny.
Yep.
But also Impossible Pie there, the last part of his question was saying you're like doing something about the Phantom Menace like you did for your Dial of Destiny review. It's when you've already got things like the Plinkett reviews out there on YouTube. That's a serious commitment for a content creator to go and do something which you're obviously going to have your own perspective and different things that you're going to talk on. It's as a content creator, you don't really want to embark on another 3-month mission to do an exhaustive review of a film that, as you said, has already been talked to death by other people in the space. So,
yeah, they're huge time sinks to do movie reviews like that. And I mean, Tony and I know just from working on, we did that exhaustive video just talking about a toy line that came out for a movie with Indiana Jones, Hasbro 2008. That took forever to pull together. And thankfully, after a little while, somehow I looked back the other day and it was like that video has finally become a success. Like that video is actually doing well now.
It's done very well, yeah.
But it was a delayed fuse. It was like it did okay when it first came out, and then but my point.
Did it see an uptick in views when all the hype around Dial of Destiny started? Because people started.
I think my Eye of Sauron was so far off of it at that point that I missed that window when it started to spike. But I looked back one day because I was looking at like the playlists or something because the playlist order on my page was all janky. And I think I was putting a Lego video in there for Indiana Jones, and I happened to see the view count for that one, and I was like, "Holy crap! When did that happen?" But yeah, Pi. So what Tony's saying is absolutely correct. Like, in order to put together a movie review like that, when you don't have a team of volunteer editors to help you, as a lot of these other channels do, it took me 3 months. 3 months. And Tony was privy to a lot of the behind the scenes production on that more than even the Patreon was. So Tony probably got sick of seeing the okay, here's this graphic I worked on today, and now I'm going to go put my head in the oven, like, but that was what was going on. So, but yeah, like I would love to talk about movies, in a more measured way at some point, like maybe 20-minute videos, 25-minute videos. As a matter of fact, not to overtalk this, even though I've already overtalked it, there are movies like, for example, let's take Crystal Skull. I can tell you what's wrong with Crystal Skull, and I can tell you what's wrong with it in about 25 minutes. I don't need 4 hours to break everything down. There are different levels of rot. Some of these movies just have surface rot,
and it's very much a case as well of that for you doing this Dial of Destiny review. It's something that you, given your almost lifelong fandom of the character of Indiana Jones and that genre, you could tackle that. And if someone says to you, "Oh, go and do the same thing about John Wick 4," you're like, "What? I don't have that knowledge base." Right. And that, because I was getting a lot of the comments on my Big Ben video. Mm-hmm. You should review all G.I. Joe classifieds like this. I'm like, well, first of all, the video did okay, but it didn't do well enough for me to want to dive into that again.
Right. That's exactly what's happening with mine. It's doing okay. It's not,
But then there's also like I was in a position to be able to do that with Big Ben because of my knowledge and understanding of British Special Forces. I can't go and do the same thing about a Cobra Bat.
No. Although if I could see a 25-minute video from you trying to pull blood from a stone about bat figure for 25 minutes, that could turn into a hilarious acid trip. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not encouraging you to do it though. That would be, I know what it's like to try and do that. That would be a nightmare. Like that would just, you would lose all enthusiasm for making content at that point. Like, Scott Knudsen, thank you so much for the kind super chat. He says, "I'm late, so sorry if this has been covered, but I think the difference between the bad Lucasfilm stuff and the bad Disney stuff is the Lucasfilm stuff is merely bad. The new stuff does violence to the franchises. It's not the same." Tony and I said this. We talked about how Crystal Skull is a bad story that Indiana Jones happens to be in. Kind of like not everybody loved Moonraker or Die Another Day. They were just James Bond films that James Bond was in. They just happened to be bad stories. Dial of Destiny, on the other hand, like No Time to Die with James Bond, it is a film that wrecks the character. Like the character is destroyed. And that's really the pivotal difference. I truly don't understand how people can't see and acknowledge that. Some people are like, "I thought it was great," and I'm like, and they said that about Last Jedi and other stuff as well. I'm like, they destroyed Luke Skywalker. How are you okay with that? Like, they get this in their head. They're like, characters change, man. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not saying characters can't change and evolve. I'm saying characters that are established in a certain way, you have to evolve them in a credible way where the motivations make sense. And this makes no sense whatsoever. This is junk.
It's the whole part of the hero's journey. Like, you need
Mm-hmm.
to understand why and the trials and tribulations they go through.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just not make a movie for close to 2 decades and then go all of a sudden, he's different now.
Right.
Because the son died in Vietnam, which you really shouldn't have done that to that character. He didn't deserve it.
Right.
Yeah.
Impossible Pie, thank you for the super chat. He says 3 months, well worth it. Well, that's very kind. I appreciate that. And all the work that Tony put into his Big Ben review, totally worth it. Love the documentary footage that you threw in there. Told you, all I could think about was that Thames logo coming up.
We spoke about that. I do think the guy who narrated that did a lot of work for Thames Media. So
that's where I live. Like, that's where I live. And then of course Tony's video coming up about the Palatoy opportunities with Indiana Jones that were never even conceived, I don't think. But still, when you see it, like, I haven't seen the video yet, but I've seen I've been privy to just even like the thumbnail, and when you see it, you're like, why did that never happen? Holy crap! You're gonna love this video. This video is gonna be so good. But no, I jinxed it. This video is going to suck. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be terrible. Okay. So if we're still talking about toys here real quick, I want to let you all know that the last 4 days I have been, and up until and including today, as of 4:00, I've just been working on part 1 of that Terrordrome restoration. And I'm telling you all right now, I would rather restore 100 Defiants than one more Terrordrome.
That bad.
It's so unworkable. Like, as far as I know, it's why I delayed all these years doing it. I know I am years late doing this Terrordrome restoration, because when I looked at it for the first time, I had played around it as a kid at other people's houses, but I never had one of my own. And now when you get one 35 plus years later, and it's got that big yellowed ring with all the discoloration and stuff on it, and it's like 4 times the size of a bog seat, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to invest in like truckloads of peroxide. I'm going to have to find miles of cling film. I don't even know what the results are going to look like. And then here's the thing. Every single other part on that thing also discolors. And every single other part on that thing, it has at least one G.I. Joe clear sticker that when they get old and all that adhesive comes from behind it, Kenner stickers are easy to deal with. Like, paper stickers just pop off. You do a little soap and water and it's clean plastic underneath. Those G.I. Joe stickers, it's like they leave behind honey from a mutant bumblebee.
It's like they melt into the pores of the plastic, and
they leave a ridged outline of where the sticker was. You can't get it off. Like, it's like, I have used solvents that I wouldn't even want to breathe in the same room with most of the time. And that little thin layer of edge mark of adhesive is still just like shrugging it off. Like, you ain't never going to get rid of me. I'm like, what? So yeah, like, I finally got done today on a, it was 3 rounds over the last 4.5 years, 3 rounds of cleaning that ring with lighter fluid and conventional scrubbing and soap. And then 2 rounds of peroxide with 2 other rounds of cleaning for each peroxide treatment. I am over it. So everybody, hear me now. The title of part 1 of this restoration video is going to be called, when you see the thumbnail come out tomorrow, it's going to be called Terrordrome Restoration Part 1, Board of the Ring. I'm over it. I'm over it. So... Impossible Pie says, if Dan Solo made Phantom Menace figures in 5 POA, would you guys buy them? I know Chris has said he only makes original trilogy figures, unfortunately. What would you do, Tony?
I would not. I would not. And if I found out that he was planning it, I might reach out to my friend Chris and say, dude, are you feeling okay?
Yeah.
Like,
here's my take on that. I think that those might fill a marketplace for the small group of people that want retro collection Hasbro figures for all the movies they haven't touched yet. But I think that once you get past the original trilogy, that pie slice of desire in the collector market becomes very, very small, because prequel collectors are mainly kids, guys who were kids during 1999, 2002, 2005. And they're used to a higher level of detail, even with 5 POA. They're used to a higher level of detail. They're used to a little more sophistication in those toys. That's their Kenner Genesis. That's why I've never thought it made any sense for them to have done retro figures of the Mandalorian cast, even though I gave those a positive nod in my video, because those fit in quite nicely as randos in the original trilogy. But for the prequels, I just don't know if the desire would be there for those. But I could be wrong. I mean, everybody in the chat who's young enough to remember Phantom Menace, let us know. I'd love to know. Jeremy Kerr, thank you for the kind super chat. He says, your issue with the Terrordrome is the reason if mine ever yellows, I'm just going to paint it to look like it did on the back of the box. Yeah. And oh, look at this. Bobby Vala. Thanks for the super chat, sir. He says, sorry, guys. I wanted to hop on, but I've been stuck with online tech support for over an hour, and you know how that goes.
Oh, Bobby, your website didn't crash again, did it? You're getting way too many orders. But all my Series 3.1 Action Force stuff arrived this week. Man, they are the weapons packs.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 weapons packs in this wave. They are. Valaverse is already known for the quality of their weapons that they do for Action Force. These are the best weapons packs they've ever done so far. Everything in there. And I'm not just talking about the impressive showstoppers like the Barrett sniper rifle and the minigun.
Mm-hmm.
Things like the Marlin Dark lever action rifle. They are just, that rifle is so sexy in that action figure form. Yeah, I was really happy with Series 3.1. I want to do a video, but I'm focusing on this big indie piece I'm working on at the moment. So,
Jake, I just want to tell you, and I'm not here to start a fight or anything like that. And I know you're not here to start a fight. I just want to put this out there for you, just so that you think about it. Okay. You say this is your first time seeing an Indiana Jones film in the theater. And I enjoyed it because I saw it. So if seeing a thing is all it takes for you to love a thing, one, whatever drugs you're taking, I'd like some, because I can't turn my brain off. But 2, I just want to remind you that film ends with a man in his pajamas in a dingy kitchen saying how everything hurts. That alone, regardless of the myriad of plot holes that have happened over the last 2.5 hours in the film, egregious plot holes, just problem after problem after problem. Let's throw all that away. And let's just think Indiana Jones ends miserable and everything hurts, shuffling around in his pajamas and house slippers in a filthy flats kitchen. Now tell me what a great movie it is. And again, I just want you to think about it. I don't want you to type it. I just want you to go and think about that. Not trying to get into a fight. I don't mind if you like the movie or not. I really don't. I'm just trying to remind people, because a lot of people go through a movie on this emotional roller coaster with the lights and the flashing colors, and they get out and they have this pat answer of, I really thought it was great. And it's like, but were you thinking about what you were watching, or were you just slurping on your drink when you were watching it? And I'm not saying just you. There's a lot of people out there like that. So just consider.
I remember one comment that you shared on social media where the guy was saying, like, in reference to Dial of Destiny, he was like, no, my life is amazing because I go into these movies, I switch my brain off, and ignorance is bliss, and I enjoy all of it. And I'm like, you're part of the problem.
That's what blows me away is that I haven't seen anybody give a thoughtful, substantive review in the positive of this movie. I've just seen very pat, like 1 to 2 sentences.
The feels.
Yeah. I thought it was great. You know, I just really loved it. I thought it was really solid. I thought it was a good movie. It's like
it was just good to see Harrison Ford dress up as Indy again. It was like, was it really? Because I didn't.
No.
It actually bothered me to see him dress up and do it again, given what we received.
Well, yeah, because he was in the licensed Halloween costume. He wasn't even in the actual Indiana Jones outfit.
Yeah,
I proved
like
that.
like I'm a huge Stallone and Sylvester Stallone and Rambo fan, and Stallone did an expert job of bringing back a classic character who had aged up in Rambo 4, just called John Rambo.
Right.
That was how it should be done. Then, of course, he went and ruined it with a 5th one as well, with that. Which wasn't even a Rambo movie. That was a Friday the 13th movie starring Sylvester Stallone as Jason.
And notice that was also a 5.
Yeah, yeah.
That movie, that was Dial of Destiny and Rambo Last Blood were equally disappointing. Like they were both just like, what are we doing here? Like what is this exercise all about? I don't understand. What it feels like you dragged us all back to this theater, the theater these 2 times with a name logo and an aging star who's not even acting like the character anymore. They're just kind of there saying lines. Like yeah. Bobby says, haha, no, it didn't crash. This is for a new site I'm setting up. Hey, everybody, you heard it here first. OnlyFans Valaverse.
He's moving into a new office. He's setting up a new website.
Yep.
I'm worried because this is not the behavior of a man whose toy line is dying and who's going to shut the doors very soon. Like, Bobby, stop wasting your money.
Right. Yeah. Well, we are at the 2-hour mark, sir. So before we end this stream, first I wanted to thank you for coming up with this topic. It was a lot of fun reminiscing tonight about standing there, midnight madness, buying a bunch of toys that I didn't realize would become attached to a film where the relationship has been, it's complicated for 24 years.
Yeah.
Just amazing to think that we're that far away. Is it 24 years?
Yeah, it's next year is the 25th anniversary.
That's insane. That's insane. At that rate, a year and a half from now, we'll be like 85 and reminiscing about all this. This is crazy.
When the Phantom Menace came out, I had hair, I wore earrings, I had a 6-pack.
See, when Phantom Menace came out, man, I was skinny as a rail. I was pale. I had a side part in my hair. Didn't have a 6-pack. Damn, my life has just been one Groundhog Day. It's just been one endless Groundhog Day. Shit.
Hey, look, you've stayed consistent. I've gotten closer to.
No, I was making fun of myself. I was making fun of myself for never evolving. Like that was not a dig at you at all. That was a dig at you.
Look, it's always a pleasure to jump on a live stream with you. Come over to RetroBlasting. This was a really fun topic. It really looked like the chat enjoyed this. I was really enjoying seeing the comments in the chat. People bringing up, some of their own memories and some of the different weird products and stuff that they came out with. So, no, thanks for having me on, man. It's been a great time.
Thanks for suggesting it. Tony made this live stream possible, everybody. It was his genius that made it possible. Jeremy Clarkson would say, "Behold my genius."
Well, I actually think we can credit Chronically Online because you were talking. They're the movie commentaries. For anyone who hasn't watched them, I highly recommend checking out the Chronically Online channel and watching or listening to those 3 kind of commentaries of the prequels that Michael did over there. I was on the channel this week discussing the 2004 Punisher movie. So yeah, shout out to Chronically Online. And yeah, it was watching those that got that whole Phantom Menace thing going around in my head. I have those periods. I'm sure you do the same, where it's like it's a topic that you're thinking about a lot. You might be working on a concept for a video or something, but at the moment, I'm very happy to be living in a Indiana Jones world that did not continue beyond 1989.
and you've got this amazing video blowing up right now.
Yeah, which was a real surprise. Real surprise. It was, a video that I only worked on for a few days, not like Big Ben that I worked on for over a month. I worked on it for a few days, and it was. I got back from like this 2-week period of I had this big project at work, and I got back. I hadn't put a video out on the channel in a month, and I was like, I really wanted to do the indie video. And I was like, but that's going to take some time. I've got tackle this smaller project and put it out, and it has just blown up. So in 2 days, it's at 61,000 views.
God,
and to put things into perspective, on average, my channel gains around 20 subscribers a day,
right?
Around 600 a month is average for my channel. I have gained 600 subscribers in 2 days.
Wow!
And I'm on the verge of hitting 60,000 subscribers. I'm 103 subs away.
Oh.
If I hit 60,000 subscribers by this time tomorrow, I'm going to jump on, do a celebratory live stream, give some stuff away, hang out, have a chat with people. We'll see. If it takes 2 days, I won't do it the day after because there's a big UFC I want to watch.
Oh, sure. I just want you to remember the rest of us when you get to 250,000 subscribers. I do.
Dude, you're the one who's got the massive silver YouTube paperweight, not me.
The one that everybody else had to be. They've all been like, you were in my house, Melinda. Even I was away when Melinda got it in the mail, and everybody that comes in, they just see it just sitting over there and it's still in the box, and they're like, "Is that the YouTube award?" I'm like, "Oh yeah," and then they're like, "Have you ever even looked at it?" And Melinda's always like, "No, he's never opened it on his own here in this house." And I'm just like, it's not that I'm being like glib or, oh, I'm too cool for that or anything. It's just more like, I don't think about those kind of things. I just think about the next video. What's the next video? What's the next project? What's the next thing I need to express?
Yeah.
I just, I actually thought that thing was supposed to be like a paperweight size. I thought it was going to be like a medallion or a belt buckle size thing that was like this big. I really did. I thought it was just a silver play button. My plan had been to take it to the coast of Cornwall, recreate the opening of Last Jedi, and throw it over my shoulder off the cliff. I really had. That was going to be my 100,000 whatever was, and then when the thing showed up, it was like a wall mirror, and I was like, it's very nice. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to throw shade at the award at all. It's very, very nice, but it's just because I can't really do anything with it in a video, and because I'm not really an awards person and I'm not competitive, I just kind of like, well, at least it's safe in its box. It says YouTube on it. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm trying to think when I came to visit back in June, you'd had it for quite a while already. I was like, oh, where have you hung the YouTube play button? And Michael was like, no, it's still in the shipper box, and it was just like on the side in the kitchen. Very uncertain. It's like, no, it's just sitting over there. Yeah, I don't imagine, you know, of course I would like to, you know, hit 100,000 subscribers and
You
get the
will.
silver play
You
button.
will.
I will. I don't know when, because I'm not giving up YouTube anytime soon. I'll get there, you know, whether it's next year or 5 years, when it comes. But I don't imagine myself to ever be one of those people who then the next live stream you see after that, all of a sudden, like the Ghostbusters Firehouse is gone and the YouTube silver play button sitting there on every live stream. Like, that's not me.
No, I've seen people that do that, and I get that they're proud of it or whatever. It's like, but it's such an eye roll. It's kind of like,
well, you know, there's an MMA mixed martial arts media channel that I watch. They've got a real nice kind of studio set up, and they've recently put it there, but they don't have the silver one. They've got the gold one, and for them, I was like, actually, that is really cool because they've only been going for a few years. That's 1 million,
yeah.
That's 1 million subs, and I was like, I might put the gold one up there if I get the gold.
Oh, if I could find my way to 1 million subs, God, how that would happen, I don't know. But if I ever found my way to 1 million subs, that would have a different impact on me. I'd be like, okay, you know, like. But it was.
Laser Pants is here saying that he hit at 5,000 subscribers. Okay, I'll go away now. No, man. Yeah, the 3POA hit 5,000 subscribers yesterday, I think it was. Super proud of the achievement of that channel, especially when you understand that it's only been its own channel for not even 2 years. It started on my channel and then, you know, was exported over. Less than 2 years. It's a live stream channel. There's not a lot of pre-produced content. That is always harder to build a fan base. But when Ryan can sit in his basement on his own playing with toys like a massive nerd and have more people watching him live than other channels that have, you know, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, you're doing something right, Ryan, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you, me, and Bobby have built. And yeah, and Ryan did say, he's like, I'm not celebrating 5,000. I'm not doing any celebrations till I hit 10,000. So if you start celebrating, everyone tell him to shut up.
Well, he also the view counts, like you said, that he pulls in for a live chat. I won't be surprised that one day they will rival Hasbro Pulse audiences. Like, it could happen. Given the rate of climb that 3POA has been able to pull in, like, he's already beating a lot of the established toy tuber. They called themselves the toy tubers. So that's what I'm going to call. I'm not a toy tuber. I'm apparently a grumpy, horrible individual. But they're the toy tubers. He's already beating them at their own game, and he's only, like you said, been around a biscuit minute. So yeah. So
yeah, well, he's actually got a personality and a perspective that people find interesting and want to listen to. And
yeah. And with that, everyone, make sure you check out Analog Toys if you're not already familiar with Tony's work. It's top shelf, some of the best toy content on the internet. And in the meantime, we will see you on the next video. Tony, is your next video going to be the Palatoy Indiana Jones?
Yep, it's called Indiana Jones and the Missed Opportunity, and I'm exploring all of the possibilities that we could have enjoyed as children if an action man, and I'm not going to if an action man Indiana Jones, I'm keeping the big reveal for the video,
right?
If they had have just made like an Indiana Jones outfit and brought it out in the Action Man line, said, "Hey, he dress your Action Man up as Indy," and then all of the other scenarios that were already pre-existing. I haven't finished the script yet. It's easily going to be a 30-minute feature, I think, easily. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, I don't know when it's going to come, but I am not going to work on anything else between now and then, unless they're, you know, I might do a reaction if Giant Man fails on Monday or something like that, or Sunday night, whatever it is.
That reminds me, I need to do something like that too. So everybody, look forward to Indiana Jones and the Missed Opportunity on Analog Toys. And here on RetroBlasting very soon, look for the Cobra Terrordrome Restoration, Part 1, Board of the Ring. And with that, we will see you on the next videos. Take it easy, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.